Today on the Dennis Michael Lynch Show, we're going to dive back into what's happening in Minnesota. Going to give you more information than you may want to know about Somalia and why it is we have all these people here. And now the problem is moving to Ohio. We've got a lot to share with you today, and it's going to be all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me today. We have a good show for you today, I think. It is a continuation, if you will, of what we showed you yesterday. The Nick Shirley video that rocked the world. I don't think there's anybody right now who doesn't know what the name Nick Shirley represents. It represents, hey, we're going to reveal the fraud that has been taking place in Minnesota. Now, you know, it's nothing new that fraud has been taking place in Minnesota. And it's nothing new that it's driven largely to the Somalis. And so what I'm going to do today, after I show you a couple of videos, because there are updates in what we told you about yesterday. Ryan, which camera am I on, please? There are updates, and we have videos for you to show. And when we show those videos to you, I am going to give you the information that I put together. I've been doing it now for a couple hours, going back to all the sources that I have used over the course of time when I was making my 4 immigration movies. And I think this will give you some insight as to how broken everything is, and that the corruption, albeit definitely driven by Somalians, is also driven by the people here in the United States of America. What we are doing makes absolutely no sense, and I mean no sense at all. We're going to start off with a video. Now, for people who are only listening to this program, understand something. This video is surveillance, and it goes back years ago. Many years ago, more than 5 years ago. I think this goes back maybe 7 years ago. It doesn't matter. It's in recent days. And what you're going to see is fraud taking place at an incredible level. Ryan, play the video.
Order for the scheme to work, the daycare centers need to sign up low-income families that qualify for child care assistance funding. These surveillance videos are from a case prosecuted by Hennepin County. They show parents checking their kids into a center only to leave with them a few minutes later. Sometimes no children would show up. But either way, the center would bill the state for a full day of child care. This video from that same case shows a man handing out envelopes of what are believed to be kickback payments to parents who are in on the fraud.
Where was the money going? I don't know exactly where it went.
You've got centers paying off the parents, and we told you about this on an earlier show, going back maybe a week or two ago. So a parent, we were telling you about this with the autism claims that were coming up. So what these parents are doing is they're taking their kid, signing them in, then leaving with their kid. The center is paying the parents a kickback, and you are paying for all of it. Absolutely all of it, because the center is billing for the full day, not the 10 minutes that the kid was walking in and walking out. Now, I guess the Somalians don't give a rat's ass about video cameras and surveillance cameras. They just don't care. And if you're pulling off crimes at this level, year after year after year, you have to either A, be the most brave human being ever, or you know that inside people are in on the scam and you have nothing to worry about. This isn't just happening with a few people. This is happening by the thousands Think about it. All those daycare centers. If you said, "Oh, it's all the owners are doing this. They're the ones doing the fraud." And if you're Pam Bondi in the DOJ, you can proudly put out that 90-something people so far have been indicted. That's what Pam Bondi did yesterday. Pam Bondi put out a tweet. I don't know the exact numbers, and I'm not even going to bog you down with getting that number because it doesn't matter. It's less than 100. But less than 100 people so far. Pam Bondi says, hey, don't worry about it. We're going after these people. We've indicted about 90-plus people, and so far 40 or 50 are, they're starting to serve their sentences. This isn't about a couple of hundred people. This is about an entire freaking clan. And if you don't know this, that's how Somalia operates. It operates in clans. You are part of a family. So these people, these Somali communities, see themselves as a great, huge, big family. And they're all in on it. It is no different than the Gotti family or the Gambino family. John Gotti may have gotten hammered by Rudy Giuliani, but at the end of the day, the entire Gotti family long lived after John, went. You had John Jr. And that's just a small mafia family. We're talking about a country. The Somalian country is living off the teat of America. And when I give you the numbers, you're going to be blown away. But I want to stick right now to the Nick Shirley stuff. So as you would imagine, the officials in Minnesota, and we showed you some of it yesterday, starting from Tim Walz going down. Tim Walz is denying everything, of course, blaming all of this on white supremacy, that it's white people who are looking to attack the Somalians. That's why the focus is here. There's corruption, there's fraud everywhere in the United States, but the MAGA crowd just wants to focus in on the people of color. Now, we want to focus in where the crime is, and the fact that the crime is being, carried out by dark-skinned Somalis, that's irrelevant because as far as I'm concerned, it is the white-skinned, educated male and female, mostly Democrats, who are allowing it to happen. So yesterday, the one of the commissioners there, this woman Tiki, oh God, what's her last name? Brown? I don't know what her last name. It doesn't matter. She held a press conference, not in person, but online. And there were, New York Times was there asking a question. The presser only lasted 12 minutes. I watched the whole thing. And this woman basically questions. She questions how the filming was done, when the filming was done, and has nothing but, you can tell just by her facial expression, and oh, by the way, she uses pronouns to describe herself, but you can see that she just has angst for Nick Shirley and this entire thing, and she says, hey man, there's no fraud going on here. Here is just a portion of what the Minnesota official said yesterday. Play it.
For the current child care centers that have been named in the video, we have not paused. There isn't a current pause on any of their payments. They are, those continue to move forward. As we gain more information from the folks that are out visiting today and gathering additional information, that may change. But currently, there is no pause on any of the those individual centers. Several of these centers have been evaluated for program integrity in past several years. Some of them have been operated for a number of years. One of the centers, Quality Learning Center, closed just over a week ago. I think another one that was mentioned had closed maybe even several years ago. So there have been ongoing investigations with several of those centers. None of those investigations uncovered findings of fraud. So that's where they currently stand. I will say, regardless of past findings, our team is just committed to making sure that we address any of the concerns that currently have appeared with the video, and that's why we are committed to working today to gather information and to assess and analyze additional information for those centers that were identified.
So let's just recap what she said there, and I'll add a little extra color to the other part of the 11-minute video that you don't see. So she questions Nick Shirley's filming approach. Now, forget about Dave and all the research that Dave has done for years that we showed you yesterday. Forget about that. Forget about Dave and the other people that were interviewed along the way saying, never seen a single kid here, never seen anybody, never seen a kid here, never, ever, ever. Nobody, not one person came forward and said, oh, yeah, this kid's here all the time. They come in here, after school, 4 o'clock. Never, never, never. Not one person. All it was accounts of fraud, fraud, and more fraud. Never see any kids. She says, hey, we don't care what Nick Shirley has to say. We are continuing with these payments. We are going to continue to give these Somali businesses, these fraudulent businesses, we're going to give them millions of dollars a year. And oh, by the way, don't worry about it because we go in and check on these places once a year. And the last time we checked was all about 6 months ago. Now, these check-ins, if you will, she says that they're unannounced. So in other words, you're going to get a surprise visit. You know and I know that is completely BS. Let me ask you this. If you had a bet, your entire life is on the line here. Your life is on the line. You get this bet wrong, you're done. You get it right, not only do you get to live, but we're going to give you the fraud money instead. You're allowed to keep it tax-free. Do you think that whoever the inspectors are going into these places aren't on the take? Would you guess that they're getting a little something under the table? We started with the surveillance video. We showed you how the parents are happily taking it. You don't think these people, these commissioners, the underlings that are going there aren't on the take? Come on. Seriously. Little phone call. Hey, by the way, Shakakabigabagabik, Ladi Gadi Dadi Dadi Shamadi, whatever their names are. I'm going to be there tomorrow at 12. Just make sure there's a bunch of kids. All right. Sounds good. Bye. And then a little envelope comes to the side. Come on, man. Come on. We all know it's happening. There's no doubt whatsoever. And when I give you the statistics on Somalia in a couple of minutes, for those of you who want to say, come on, DML, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe these inspectors are going in, and even though it is unannounced and a surprise visits, come on, let's give these people the benefit of the doubt. Everybody is innocent until proven guilty. All right. I've got waterfront property in Nebraska for you. Oceanfront, by the way. So she tells the New York Times and everybody else in that press conference that the Quality Learning Center, and I call it Learning because they didn't put the N in, Learning Center, and I think we should all give the Somalians who own those businesses the respect they deserve, especially the Learning Center. If that's the way they want to represent themselves, we shouldn't be racists. We should call them by what the sign says, right? Okay. So the Quality Learning Center, she said, was out of business, that they had closed down the week before Nick Shirley took his cameras, and that's why pretty much you didn't see any children there. They're closed down. They closed down. Well, these lying SOBs need to get their story straight because yesterday, while she's having her press conference online with her little Raggedy Ann hairdo, I guess she was inspired by the lying loser with the pronouns who used to be the press secretary for Joe Biden, right? Do they not look like cousins, those two? Yesterday, while she's giving her press conference, another camera crew went there and filmed kids going into the center. The New York Post reports that they were trucking in kids. Here is another news report on what I'm telling you. Go.
Everyone seems to be talking about the viral video by YouTuber Nick Shirley visiting Somali-run daycares in Minnesota that receive millions in taxpayer money and showing a lack of kids present. Well, I have a strange twist for you. The daycare that's getting the most attention from Shirley's video is the Quality Learning Center, misspelled as Quality Luring Center. While answering questions today, the state commissioner in charge of licensing daycares claimed that the Quality Learning Center permanently closed 1 week ago, which would have been before Shirley filmed his video. Listen.
I will share that our team was notified that Quality Learning Center closed just over a week ago. And I believe the details that were given at that time were around space concerns. And that's what was shared.
But after that press conference, we went back to the Quality Learning Center and vans were dropping off dozens of children. Parents and a manager told us the daycare is open and is legitimate. We saw state inspectors leaving, and we hope to find out by the end of the week if they made any new findings. I'm Lou Ragoose. Follow for more news.
I mean, come on, folks. They're bussing in kids. They're bussing in kids. Suddenly people are seeing kids there for the first time ever. And the officials can't get their story straight because they're saying it closed down, and yet the owners of that learning center are saying, no, we're not closed down. In fact, I seen an entire video. We didn't care to cut it and show it to you, but there's an entire video of the son of the people who own that questioning the ethics of Nick Shirley and saying that he's basically disgenuine and that it's falsified information. And that the reason why they didn't see any kids is because these kids get dropped off after school. And Nick Shirley was there prior to the end of school. I mean, look, every single one of those centers was empty, not just one. This isn't about one center. This is about an entire racket. An entire racket. Minnesota has the greatest population of Somalis in the United States of America. The second most amount of Somalis is in Ohio. And so as we showed you yesterday, there was a woman, we had showed you, she was an African-American woman, just a regular old woman, put out a video saying, Nick Shirley, please come film in Ohio. We have the same problem. And then we showed you a Republican lawyer from the state of Ohio that says, yeah, these people, there are some people, not only with child daycare, but with adult daycare. This is for the elderly. She claims that there are people who are making, get this, $250,000 a year by fraudulently saying they're taking care of their parents and their in-laws. So under their laws, you can, as the child, let's say, for instance, it was my parents. In Ohio, I could go and say, I want to give my elderly parents quality care services. And instead of dropping them off at a center, I want to do those services myself. I am going to drop them off here, and I'm going to drop them off there, and I'm going to give them everything they need. And what will wind up happening is that you will get paid up to $75,000 per adult. So if you've got 4 people that you're doing it for, you'll wind up making yourself between $250,000 and $300,000 for doing nothing. And nobody's checking in to see whether or not you are actually performing those services. And you wonder why all the restaurants are busy. You know, this is one of the things that I think is now going, I mean, what we're going to start seeing is everybody is going to start revealing the fraud that they're seeing around them. And I know it's one of the things that have been very confusing to people because you say, hey, look, the economy's not going all that great. And people are saying, no, there is. The restaurants are packed and the stores are packed. Well, when there's a lot of fraudulent money going around, how can there not be? How can there not be? And the people who are funding all this are you and me, the honest people who pay their taxes, who hate having to do it, but understand that the rule of law is the rule of law. At least we've all believed in the rule of law. And if the rule of law collapses, we become nothing other than a really big, huge third world country with first world accommodations. It's really what it comes down to. So another guy now decides that he's going to take his camera and he's going to start looking at the Somali centers, the daycare centers in Ohio. And this is obviously going to turn into the next blockbuster. Here is a video that was posted late yesterday from a gentleman who is in Ohio looking at the same sort of scenario. Play it.
Daycare facilities in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So we wanted to come out to Columbus, Ohio and investigate what might be going on in the second largest Somali community in the United States of America. So this place here is the first place we're gonna knock, and we're gonna see if anybody picks up or answers the door. Let's see. So, it's locked. We're ringing the doorbell here. Knocking on the door. Nobody's picking up. So we're not sure what the hell's going on here, but we're gonna get out of here. Now there's somebody over there. How you doing, sir? I'm sure you see the reports over the weekend about all the daycare centers in Minnesota. We just wanted to see what was going on. Did you know anything about this place here?
It's a daycare center owned by Somalians and stuff like that.
Do you ever see any kids there?
No, because they use the back door, so I won't know if they is.
They use the back door.
Yeah, I've never seen nobody come in it, but they use the back door.
But have you ever seen any kid? You live around here?
Yeah, on this building right here.
Oh, you're in this building?
Yeah.
You're in this building too? Hey, let me ask you, have you ever seen any kids in this place here?
No, not that I know of. They use the back, so I've never seen nobody come out the front.
You've never seen anybody over there?
No, not at all.
I just seen it, the building itself. I've never seen nobody come out the building or go in the building.
So we came to the back, just like those guys suggested, and there's nothing here. You know, we could keep poking around, but there's so many of these centers to go to. We're just getting started. So we're gonna go around the city. We're gonna go to a few more of these places. We're gonna see if we can get anybody to talk to us. Stay tuned.
I'm going to give you some information I compiled, and this information has been compiled by me over the years. And keep in mind that I made 4 immigration films, and I have dealt with people from Department of Homeland Security, Border Patrol, INS, which is now pretty much ICE, and the information that I've gathered from the top sources. And some of this information is going to blow your mind because you never read about this anywhere, especially in the mainstream media. The New York Times would never give you the information I'm about to give you right now. Hold on, here we go. The population of Somalia is about 19 to 21 million. That's the estimate, the latest estimate of 2025. The religion in Somalia, 99% of the people who are in Somalia are Sunni Muslim. The birth rate, on average, a woman in Somalia has about 6 children. And in comparison, American white women have an average of 1.5 children. So think about that for a moment. We've got a whole population now in Minnesota, Ohio, and across the United States where those women come from a culture where each of them is having 6 children, and we're having 1.5. Let you know why it is when you go outside your door, you don't recognize anything anymore, or anybody for that matter. Here's the killer. Fraud and corruption allegations against the Somalian president, who has been in place since 2012. This guy has been accused by the United Nations of secretly diverting recovered Somali government assets held overseas for his own personal benefit. So there had been assets that had been held. And when they gave him back, he didn't give it back to the country. He kept it for himself. Then he was accused again of doing the same sort of thing with real estate sales that were taking place in Somalia. And this guy is there still today. This is who Ilhan Omar recently got up and said, "We love our president." So they have a president who the rest of the parliament tried to get rid of because of the fraud, and they couldn't get rid of him. Now, here's the craziest thing, too, about Somalia. Al-Shabaab is a terrorist organization. It runs pretty much half that country. So you got the government who's running some of it, and you got Al-Shabaab who's running the other end. So if I were to break this up for you, imagine the entire west coast of the United States was run by Antifa, and the entire east coast of the United States was run by Washington, D.C. That is what you're looking at right now. So Al-Shabaab is basically ruling many of the different rural areas out there. So Somalia's economy, its total GDP is $12 billion for the year. Now, to put that into perspective, now remember what I told you. You're looking at a country here with about 20 million people, and it's $12 billion. To put that into perspective, Vermont in the United States has the smallest state GDP. That's basically the total collection of all your receipts, your economic receipts. $45 billion for a state like Vermont that has roughly 700,000 people in it. So think about that for a moment. Almost 4 times, Vermont has 4 times the economy that the entire country of Somalia has. And keep in mind that Somalia has the largest coastline in all of Africa. So it's not like they don't have a destination that people can go to, right? The 2 biggest industries in Somalia, this is going to blow you away, livestock and remittances. Well, what do you mean remittances? Yeah, up to about 40% of Somalia's entire GDP is money that is sent to them from people, other Somalians who are living in the United States and in other areas of the world. But the majority of it is all coming from the United States. Imagine your country, your number one industry is remittances sent to you from people who are living abroad. There you go. All these answers are coming right to the surface. Now, about 43% of the people who live in Somalia make or earn less than $1 a day. So we're talking about severe poverty here. Now, in terms of the rule of law, right? There is a mix of formal courts. This is the part of the country that is run by the government. But the majority of the courts are Sharia courts. So we're talking about a corrupt nation that is freaking triggered wholly by Islam and Sharia law. Now, in the Al-Shabaab areas, right, they run the whole thing, and they've got strict Sharia courts, and basically they enforce things like executions and amputations. So when you've got U.S. officials telling the Somalians that, hey, listen, you might spend 2 months in jail and get a fine for 10 grand, they're laughing. They're like, oh, all right, wait, I got to get a small little fine and a slap on the wrist, or I got to go back to Somalia where I'm going to have my hand chopped off? Put me in jail all you want. We're going to continue to do the corruption because that's all we know. Somalia, out of 180 countries, is ranked 179 for corruption. It's the worst of the worst. Only South Sudan is worse. Now, for some ungodly reason, the people in Washington, D.C. say, we need these folks. This is what we want to take. 99% Muslim, where their top industry is taking money, stealing money from the United States and sending it back to them, to where there basically is no rule of law and their president is more corrupt than John Gotti. Minnesota currently has the largest Somali population in the United States, with estimates ranging around 100 to 108,000 Somalians. That's right. The next largest is Ohio, with about 30,000 statewide. Now, in terms of Muslim populations in the United States, Illinois leads it with 3.7% of its entire population Muslim. Close behind that is New York at 3.6, New Jersey 3.5, Maryland and Minnesota, about 3% of their entire populations are Muslim. And you just watched New York City be 100% taken over by Muslims. Because if you look, I mean, you look at New York, for example, very, very, very unique state in its makeup. Because New York, if you were to make New York into a square, which it's not, but if you made it into a square, the bottom left square is Manhattan. And that's where all the people are. So the majority of the Muslims are all in that area. And that's why Mamdani wins. You take the rest of the state, that fills up the majority of the square, and then Long Island makes up the other little tiny corner. So that's why it is when I say to you 3.6% is made up of an entire state, we'll cut into Manhattan. Mamdani, when you take out the foreign-born, when you just took native-born, he didn't stand a chance. He was only getting 30% of the vote. He was getting over 60% of the vote when you took in the foreign-born. So the importation of the people coming into this country from the Muslim world is destroying us. It is 100% destroying us. Now, where did this all come from? Why did this start? Okay, there was a little thing called the Refugee Act in 1980. It was signed by Democrat President Jimmy Carter. And since then, it has just gotten worse in terms of how many people we took in. It all started under Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton opened the doors to Somalia. And that was driven because there was a Somali civil war back in 1991. And by the time that Clinton got in there, he decided we needed to take about 10,000 people from Somalia every single year. Every single year we had to take in 10,000. It only increased under George Bush Jr. No surprise there because he's not really a Republican. He's not a conservative. He's a Democrat wearing a red tie. All right. And it continued under Obama. It wasn't until Trump came in, Trump 1.0, he said, hey, we have to lower this. And he started lowering it. And then what winds up happening, Biden comes in and Biden lifts it all up again. And now, as of Trump being back in, the stuff is stopped. But the damage has absolutely been done. And it's been done primarily because of the Democrats. And I put George Bush Jr. in there as a Democrat. Never mistake this. When you look at all the open border nonsense we've been dealing with, and I'm talking about legal immigration, by the way, but now if you just want to look at illegal immigration, by the way, just for a moment, the worst we ever had it, with the exception of Biden, was under George Bush. So never deny that George Bush was not a Republican. His family is not a Republican family at all. Now, here's the part to where you're going to see how the corruption flies. When somebody is going to apply for a visa or refugee status, they have to go through an application process. Well, Somalia is so dangerous and so corrupt that U.S. immigration doesn't even have an embassy or anywhere that somebody in Somalia can go to try to fill out applications, because Al-Shabaab and everything else that takes place in that country is impossible to operate in. So what we've done is we've set up shop in Kenya. Which is right next door. So imagine, opening up your immigration services in New Jersey, across the river from New York. So if you are a Somalian, you basically are going to wind up do your processing through Kenya. Now that shouldn't make you feel any better, because Kenya is ranked 121 in terms of most corrupt out of the 180. So it's right up there towards the top. Now, here's the killer part, okay? We don't have Americans doing the majority of the processing. No. What they do, what the United States does, is we hire Kenyans and we hire international people through the UN. And they're the ones who do all the processing, all the majority of the paperwork, all the applications, all the collections, everything. And then what happens is they hand over, and let's just round it off to 8,000 people a year between the visas and the refugee stuff. We'll just, because it goes up and down. Let's just say 8,000 a year going back to the Clinton time. So you're looking at about, let's call it 30 years. I'll just even say 30 years. So for 30 years, we've been taking in an average of 8,000 people per year. We have maybe a little over a dozen of natural nation-born Americans, not foreign-born who are naturalized. I'm talking about Native Americans who are over in Kenya. And the majority of these people don't look like you and me. So what happens is that all these paperworks and all these processes are going through people who have no affiliation to America, no affinity to America, no lineage to our America lifeline, nothing. And they're all coming from corrupt countries. Now, if you want to take what the average Kenyan makes in a year, it's $600 a year. So here's the process to which this happens. The Somalian, who's corrupt and comes from corruption and who's grabbing money from America, is now going in to apply to go to America. giving it to a Kenyan who's corrupt, who isn't making any money. And they're basically going to process all the paperwork. And then that's the background checks, that's the application. And then they hand it over to Americans, a dozen or so, who are just going to sit there and have to rubber stamp 8,000 people per year. And you wonder how we get people like Ilhan Omar, who is accused of marrying her own brother, to wind up getting him over here. You wonder why it is that we've got so many people from Somalia running our country into the effing ground. It's because it all starts over there, our immigration process. And this is why I have been screaming for years to cut off all immigration. I don't care where it's from. We don't have the people to vet anybody. And we're not vetting anybody because let me tell you what happens. Al-Shabaab or whoever else it is that's corrupt in that country has the cash that somebody from Minnesota or Ohio or somebody else, some other state, sent back because that's their number one industry. They get that money. They go up to whoever Somalian and say, okay, you're going to give this $5,000 to Joey Kenya, and you're going to tell Joey Kenya that he's going to make sure that he gives you all the paperwork that you possibly need. He's going to do all the different stuff, even though you are a scumbag piece of crap. He's going to be a fraudulent person himself. He's going to set up all the paperwork. You're going to give this guy $5,000 because he's only been making $600 a year. And you think that guy's going to say no when you tell him you got 10 other people who are going to wind up giving him the $5,000? And if he doesn't do it, he's going to wind up being dead. We're going to put a bullet in his head. And that's how it all happens. So it's this one big, huge loop. The money comes from the Somalian USA to the Somalian in Somalia, the government and the Al-Shabaab, who are both corrupt on both ends. They're going to give money over to the dirty Kenyans who are going to turn a blind eye to the fact that they're allowing in all these pieces of garbage who really aren't refugees, who are just coming over because they're going to come over to the United States and they're going to do the same process. They're not going to say, thank you for inviting me. They're not going to try to be legit. They're just going to be part of the clan that is going to keep on feeding the money back to Somalia. This is what the Democrats do. This is why Tim Walz turns a blind eye, because he's benefiting from this. Everybody in that state is benefiting from this. It's a blue state. It's deep blue. Their campaign coffers are filled with this dirty money, and that's why it never stops. It never stops. Even when Trump turns off the immigration from Somalia, it still flows. It still flows. It still flows. And here it is, Nick Shirley's video, and we still are giving money to these centers until the corrupt people in Minnesota do their own investigation and find out there was no fraud. Everything's legit. Don't believe what you see. Nick Shirley filmed that when things weren't going on. Come on. This is all MAGA. And let me tell you what happens in 3 years from now. If J.D. Vance doesn't win and you get in Gavin Newsom, who's probably the only person in America who can claim to be more corrupt than Tim Walz, because if you think Minnesota's bad, if you think Ohio's bad, the amount of fraud that is taking place in California is off the freaking charts. It's so big, you wouldn't be able to film it if you had 50 Nick Shirleys. And that's where this cycle is going. And here is how I think Trump is missing things. And although I voted for him 3 times, if I had the chance in front of him, I'd sit down in front of him. I'd say, Mr. President, here is what you are missing. And come on, man, you've run a business. You know exactly what's going on. Okay? First of all, we need to cut off all immigration into the United States immediately, not just from frickin' Somalia, but from Kenya and from frickin' Iraq and Syria and even the UK. Just cut it all off, because in Europe, they're inundated by people who just came from that dirty region. Just cut it all off. Let's catch our breath for the next 20 years, and let's put in real systems to where all we do is take over the people who are nuclear scientists and people who could really add value to the United States of America. And to be honest, sir, I don't know why we would need anybody. We are the United States of America. We should be able to do this on our own. We don't need anybody. Let's get these people out of the system. Let's do deportations and denaturalizations. Let's take all those IRS agents and let's start putting them on investigations to find all the tax fraud that's taking place instead of going after the grandma who may have written off one wrong thing when she was doing her Social Security returns. Let's stop going after the people who are just the low-hanging fruit because you want to put, the IRS or the DHS wants to put a nice little video out that they're on the job. No, you want to be on the job, you got to go after the scumbags because it's a trickle-down scumbag economy. That's what's happening right now. And then on top of that, you may think you have the all-star team and the Marco Rubios and all these other different people who are running the different departments and the Christy Noems or whatever it may be. Those are the faces we get to see. But any big organization, any organization with 200 people in it, let alone, and I know, Mr. Trump, that this has nothing to do with the Marco Rubios and the Christy Noems. They're not doing the day-to-day job. We got to look at the middle management. Middle management is what breaks or makes a company. If you've got middle management that's corrupt, dirty, turning a blind eye, everybody underneath them is going to destroy the company. You want to have a strong company, you need to have great middle management because they're the ones getting their hands dirty and they're the ones reporting up to the top and then the top is reporting to you. So let's start looking not at the Christy Noems and the Hegseths. Let's start looking at the middle management, the names that nobody knows, the names that get to fly by because they're never on Fox News. Nobody knows who they are, and nobody's ever going to look into their backgrounds. You want to stop the corruption in the United States of America? Start looking at the middle management. They're the ones who are taking the envelopes underneath the table. That's where the problem exists, and until we take a look at that, we're done. Because let me tell you something. I remember when I had my computer company, and I had probably 200 plus people in two different big locations. One was in Illinois and one was in New York. And you know what? We were getting stolen from all the time. You got a million computer and computer parts all over the place. You know who wasn't stealing from me? It wasn't my VP or my C-level people, my CEO, my CFO, my VP of sales, my VP of operations. Those people weren't stealing from me. It was the middle manager guy who knew how the ebb and flow worked and where the cameras were, and they were the ones who were stealing the stuff. So we've got to start taking a look at the commissioners. We've got to take a look at the people who are going in and doing the inspections. These are the scumbags that need to not only be fired for their incompetence, but they've got to be put in jail. Because if they're not put in jail and we don't make their faces public on Newsmax and Fox News and the New York Times and everything else, all these people are going to continue. And that's the way it's working. We can solve this problem if we have the will to solve the problem. And that's that. I'm never going to bend on this because I know how to fix these problems. It takes will. Just like it took will for Nick Shirley to go do the job of 5 different agencies and 100 different mainstream media outlets who have all fallen asleep at the wheel. Probably $1,000 it cost Nick Shirley. Let's get going on what needs to be done. Now, with that said, let's just get out of Minnesota for a second and let's take the disgusting, horrible news report of yet another, right here on the big screen, another illegal alien. This guy's name is Kutara Haji Karamoko, who for some reason, despite being illegal, is driving a truck, and now we got a dead infant. Play the video, Ryan. Play the news report.
Virginia State Police say troopers responded to a 2-vehicle crash on I-81 near the city of Roanoke. VSP says the driver of the tractor trailer was headed north when he ran off the right side of the road and hit a Honda Odyssey, stopped on the shoulder and killed the 65-year-old driver, Lorraine Renee Williams, 49-year-old Ebony Latasha Williams, and 2-year-old Shazaya Leslie. 58-year-old El Haddaj Karamoko Katara was charged with reckless driving.
This should never happen. And I say it every day on this show, with the exception of yesterday, because we just focused completely in on Minnesota. But I'll tell you what, you put this in nationwide, and even that will go down in terms of the corruption. We simply need mandatory e-verify. The reason why this piece of crap is allowed to be driving a truck and killing people is because nobody is holding the business owners freaking liable. Nobody. What happens is this guy, this piece of crap who doesn't speak English, gets behind a truck. He's making money. He's making money for some other business. And what does he do? He kills people. So somebody died. People died because this guy was allowed to drive, because there's an owner who is breaking the law and allowing this person to go do that. If you want the problems to stop, damn it, you gotta go and take out these business owners who are allowing this to happen. Because as far as I'm concerned, even though this guy is being held, the co-conspirator in this is the company that hires him. And yet Trump won't stop it. And I'm sorry, Mr. President, as much as I want to defend you and protect you and fight back against the Democrats, I am not going to turn a blind eye. As much as I love my wife, if she started stealing money from me tomorrow, I'm not just going to turn a blind eye because, you know what, I've loved her for so long and she's made me dinner every night for 30 years. She's stealing from me. Mr. President, lives are being lost. Mandatory e-verify places the responsibility on the business owner who's hiring this piece of garbage. So don't tell me about America first, because that's not a thing. If you're not going to protect the families, you're not going to protect the children of this country, first and foremost, over protecting the businesses and profits, then you're not America first. What you are is your business and money first. And that's not how a country is going to survive, because that makes us no better than Somalia. Now, with that being said, last video of the day here. As you know, I try to end as many shows as I can with the crazy left. In New York, the Mamdani era, the Hochul era, this is going to be remembered. This is going to be written about as being the turning point that nobody stopped. We are going to show you a hearing in New York where I think this is an assembly member is pushing back against a new program in New York that tells you that if you are a person who has a multifamily residence, that you can't sell it on your own privately unless you first go through the government. So this way, the government has a chance of having an NGO or somebody else of that nature buying up that property. Freedom is being stripped. Play it.
In regard to what we're just talking about now, COPA, how wrong can a person be or a body of a government be when we start to take the individual rights away from the homeowner, whether it's a 2-family house, 3-family house, 4-family house, what does it matter? The fact is the person owns the home. They have the right to sell the home to whomever they please. The idea that we have to consult with the building department and give a 6-month period of time for someone else to make an offer is absolutely outrageous. And to say it's government overreach is 100% true. This is absolutely maniacal. I do not understand how this body works when it comes to individual citizens of this city. This is overreach at its very best. I'm a homeowner, and no one is going to tell me or anybody else I know that's worked so damn hard to own a 3 or a 4-family home that I have to submit the ability to sell my house first to the building department and then offer it up to a non-for-profit when my neighbor across the street may want to buy it. And they have to wait 6 months? Nonsense. This is absolutely ridiculous. And also I want to just add to this, hearing today, this meeting today, that is absolutely ridiculous. And everybody in this room should be terribly embarrassed that we stripped off veterans' bills today from today's hearings. Why? Why? When the men and women of this country deserve better treatment, and our city today that we passed in committee has failed to come through for our veterans, stripped it totally off the record for today. Absolutely ridiculous. Thank you very much, and shameful. Shame, shame on all of you.
The United States, as I said to you yesterday, I'm going to extrapolate on that today, and we'll end on this note. The United States has been comprised of 50 states, and we have always separated them. If you want to say separated them, it's sort of in theory, by blue states and red states, Democrat versus Republican states, and many of them considered swing states. This is changing, and it is going to be a battle between how we name these states. I think it will start by saying you live in a socialist state or you live in a freedom state. New York being a socialist state, Florida being a free state. And unless we stop the immigration process, as I have defined it now for years, and I'm getting louder and stronger in that scream because other people are starting to understand what I have been yelling about. If we do not stop this, I told you about the birth rates. Somalian women, 6 kids per woman. American white females, 1.5 kids. We're going to get outdone, and it is going to happen quickly. It's going to be like compounded interest. Boom, 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 boom. And it will change our states from being a Muslim Islamic state to a Christian state. Minnesota will be an Islamic state. New York will be an Islamic state. Florida will be a Christian state. The problem with that, and it's a problem, is that we will not have many Christian states. Not long term. America needs to wake up. America is worth saving. And I'm trying to do all I possibly can to elevate my voice to the next level so people get common sense. And it's working. I just want to give you a little bit of how it's working. And it all falls back on you. You are the reason why we're growing. Let me give you a couple things that I think are pretty impressive. My numbers on Facebook have not grown in years. We will go from 1.4 million to 1.5 million people following us on our Facebook page by the end of this week. That 100,000 has come in the last 2 months. On Instagram, my kids said to me, Dad, you got to start getting on Instagram. Please get on Instagram. All right. We had a couple of photos up there. Who wants to see a photo of me on a boat? But my kid said, Dad, we got to start making short. I got to really give Ryan the credit. You got to start making short videos where you're teaching people and you're expressing opinions that people say, yeah, I want more people to hear about this. In a month's time, we have gone from having 16,000 meaningless followers on Instagram, and I don't mean the people are meaningless, I mean the content was meaningless, to right now, I think today we'll wind up being at about 75,000. We're growing like wildfire. It's going to hit 1 million in a matter of months. On X, same thing. I set up an account last year, barely ever used it. Ryan, my kids say the same thing. Dad, take those videos, put them all over X. By the end of this week, we will probably be at about 80,000 to where I was only about 15,000 2 months ago. YouTube is our biggest challenge. YouTube, we haven't really started doing a whole lot yet, but that's our next initiative. Because you keep on hitting the share button, which I'm going to ask you to do on this show, you hit the share button, you see my content, especially my videos, and you hit the share button, whether it's the full podcast or the short one, you are helping us grow. But the greatest way that you can help us, and understand, I came back from retirement. For 8 months, I was on the road to retirement. My wife had gotten ill. I figured there were enough conservative voices out there. Nobody needed mine anymore. Then all of a sudden, Charlie Kirk gets murdered. And like within a week, some of the top people in the world of conservative podcasting have lost their minds, going pro-Muslim, going freaking sounding like Democrats, buying property over in Qatar, coming up with these conspiracy theories, all this crazy stuff. Charlie's absence has created a void, and that void has only grown greater by people who I think are also corrupt and paid for. I had no choice to come back, especially when my wife last month started walking normally again. And so I'm back here. I don't pay myself. I don't need the money. I don't want the money. I mean, I'm not worth hundreds of millions of dollars, believe me, but I've got enough to keep myself sustained for a little while. I have created Team DML. So this way, every single video, every single podcast, every single news article, every single newsletter that we put out, you never miss anything. And so this way you get it all and you can share, you can be informed. So to cover my costs, pay my kids, you can get a membership on Team DML for literally $20 a year. I pay my expenses, and the extra I've been putting into advertising. I've never advertised in my life. My entire organizations, everything, whether it's my CBD business, my media business, my films, I have never advertised. It has always been organic. And now anything I get after I pay out my kids and they work for cheap, I wound up putting into ads. We have ads going in on Facebook. We got ads going in on, some posts that I put up on X, I put $1,000 on one post just to promote it. So I've never done that in my life. That's how serious I am on this. So if you want to help me help you, if we want to together help, I ask you this. Go to teamdml.com and sign up. $20. You want to get the CBD for the cheap, then you go to the $30 route. $20. I mean, anybody can afford that. The more, we have thousands of members. I want tens of thousands. I'd like to get over 100,000 because as far as I'm concerned, Team DML has to be the equivalent of Turning Point USA for adults. Because ultimately, these kids are the future, but you and I are the now. And if we don't do things now, we're done. Those kids won't have anything, especially now that Charlie Kirk's done. It's going to take us. We have the wisdom. We have the experience. We know what America could be. The majority of these kids at TPUSA, they all grew up under Obama and Bush. They think this is the norm. They haven't had Trump long enough. And even some of the things that Trump is doing, the kids aren't crazy about. We have to explain to them that the days of Ronald Reagan are still able to be grabbed. We can take the best of Reagan and the best of Trump and put it together and have a country that thrives. We're broken. We're hurting, but we're not dead. And until they take the breath out of your lungs and my lungs, we've got to keep on fighting. So please, Team DML for an entire year, $20. It helps pay the bills and it helps me advertise this message in addition to you hitting the share button. So I want to say thank you very much. Again, God willing, we'll be with you tomorrow. And I ask you to be here with me. And that's the thing, the newsletters. We have the 47 report. We tell people, go to dml360.com, sign up for the free newsletters. You know what people tell us? It's in my spam. So between the email companies putting us in their spam, the social media companies not putting us in your feed, you get lucky if you catch us. With Team DML, you never miss anything. And there's always a link to where you could find the information that we just posted back on your social media, and then you can share it. So it is the perfect platform. So please go to teamdml.com and sign up. And if you're an existing member and you want to downgrade, you could do that. If you're an existing member and you say, you know what, I want to give more than $20, you can upgrade. We give you things. There's a lot there. I'll do a whole show or a whole segment about how many things. We've got podcasts. We've got the Dennis Michael Lynch Live from Monday to Friday. We're starting the DML interviews, which is once a week. I interview somebody. Anybody's been with me, I really don't ever do the interviews. Now I'm going to do them once a week. I got great people lined up, experts in business and in politics and in health and in business. These people, I'll sit down with them for an hour. The amount of stuff you'll learn that you can take away, that comes with your membership. That's exclusive to our members. My wife is now back. We used to do the wine and talk. Can't do that anymore because she doesn't drink. She can't drink with her condition. But what we're doing, Life After 50, about all the great things about America. And it's not politically driven. It's more culturally driven. And the memory lane that we go down and the different things, a lot of laughs. You want to do it. That's exclusive to our members on weekends. Ask DML. That's another thing. The walk and talk. That's another thing. Just exclusive for our members. Our newsletters. We got 5 different newsletters. So you get that as a Team DML member. And look, $20. You get hit one time for $20. And if you don't like it, you cancel. Don't come back. I understand if we're not performing well. Live chat. You could live chat with people 24/7, 365. Sometimes there's just a handful of people in there. Sometimes there's hundreds of people in there. Like I said, we got thousands of members. We want to make it to tens of thousands. So please help us help you. TeamDML.com. Until tomorrow, may God bless you, your family, our president, these United States, and the poor people who wound up dying because this piece of garbage was allowed to drive. We'll talk to you soon.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML.